All right. Hello. I'm Miles Griffin. I am the founder of Chess Squares, which is um, a business that I started to offer chess lessons as I pursue my goal of becoming a national master. So this video series is the first. This is the first video in this video series, which is going to be the road to national master, which is my goal. So about a month ago, I left my full-time job as a project engineer in acoustics to pursue chess to achieve the National Master title. And I will be offering lessons through Chess Squares. The link will be in the description if you are interested in going to check out that site. If you want to take lessons, if you know someone who might want to take lessons, um, yeah, it's for people of all ages and skill levels. You don't have to really know how to play chess at all. You can also be, very strong player, and I hope that my lessons will still be useful to you. So yeah, this video series is going to be geared towards players who sort of already know uh, a reasonable amount about chess. And so the analysis is going to be pretty high level. I am thinking about doing some lower level, like introductory beginner content as well. But this is the first series, and this is going to be um, the first tournament that we're going to look at is uh, my Eastern class tournament that took place about a month ago, beginning of June. So we'll start it off. It's a 5 round tournament. So this first round was against Elizabeth Zhao, 1900. So right now, my rating is in the 1900s. Right now it's 1973, and this tournament was 1975. So I still haven't broken 2000, but hopefully that comes soon because that is the first step to achieve. So this first game, round one, was a Friday evening, and she played e4, and I responded with the Caro Kann. Uh, I am not super confident in my openings at this point in time, so I am working on them. This game, for example, after some moves, takes, bishop f5, knight g3, bishop g6. That's still in book. Here, she played the move knight ge2, and this was already for me out of book, which is not ideal, but I handled it fine. So I was looking at an early h4 as something that I was concerned by. So I played e6, and now after knight f4, I played bishop d6, which is still book, but I was very concerned in this position about potential h4. Um, because, well, it does threaten h5, trapping the bishop. I don't want to give away my dark square bishop for this knight. And I never really want to play h6 or h5 because then after takes on g6, I am forced to take with the f pawn, and that's sort of positional disaster. The e6 pawn will be weak. Um, so after h4, I had settled on playing maybe queen c7, and then queen f3 doesn't work because the c2 pawn is hanging. But it sort of felt very risky to me, and I was not a fan of my position after h4. Instead, bishop c4, which is also a book move, and I understood um, that there were sacrifices possible on e6. So if I were to play like knight d7, as played in the game, if she were to castle, and if I played queen c7, already I think in that position, after castles, queen c7, already I think bishop takes e6 might be possible to play. Yeah, okay. Bishop takes e6 is possible to play. E takes, knight takes, and I'm losing g7. She has 3 pawns for a bishop, which is already material compensation. And in this case, there's also an attack. My king's in the middle. It's not going to be able to castle. So this is already not very pleasant. It's already probably losing or close to that. So, but knight gh5 played. Um, so now I have to deal with this g7 pawn. And I was looking at some stuff that I really shouldn't be looking at. I was looking at playing maybe just knight f6, and after knight takes g7, just playing king e7. which, there should be some sacrifice working on e6 in that position. So my main moves at the end of the day were king f8, protecting the pawn, or bishop takes h5. Bishop takes h5. I didn't like. Okay, so knight takes h5, g6. If we look at this position, um, I didn't like that my dark squares were a little bit weak. Um, my bishop's on d6, but the bishop can come back. The knight's going to develop, and I'm going to castle. So um, I don't think white has anything immediate. So I think that probably I should have gone for this. Instead, I played move king f8, which isn't a bad move. It's just very committal. The king can no longer castle. And my idea was that I'm just going to play knight gf6 on the next turn. And um, like, yes, you've made my king so it can't castle, but you've wasted a lot of time with these knights. And after knight f6, you're either going to trade or have to retreat. And eventually I'll be able to play h6, which is a useful move anyway. King g8, king h7, and move the rook to the middle, and I'll be fully castled and developed. I've wasted a lot of time doing that, but you've also put your knight up and back, so you've used some time. So that was sort of my thought process behind king f8. So castles, knight f6, going with the plan. Knight g3, the machine gives that as an inaccuracy. I thought it was pretty straightforward, made some sense to me. Trading felt like it may have helped me develop my queen, and then also I would get knight b6, knight d5 with tempo. So um, I just played knight d5, which the machine also gives an inaccuracy mark, but it's fine evaluation. So yeah, knight d5, attacking the knight, so you're gonna have to deal with it somehow. And here she played a very strange move. She took with the knight, which allows me to capture either direction. I mean, so taking I don't think is very accurate because now that allows me to solidify either pawn. I get to solidify the d5 square with a pawn. Now makes breaking with c4 much more difficult. If the piece is still the knight is still on d5, then c4 is much stronger. Um, so yeah, taking I think is an inaccuracy. I think that's an accurate um, analysis by the review bot. So then c takes. So I could have taken with the e pawn, but I wanted to get a minority attack going with b5, and like once let's say the bishop retreats, eventually c3 will have to be played once I put pressure on the c pawn, c3, and then I'll play b5, b4, minority attack, break up the pawns, and I'll play against this backward c pawn later on. So that was my idea. Also, I didn't like the idea of taking with the e pawn because my king is sort of still in the middle. I'm not going to be able to get a rook to the e file for a little bit of time, so I didn't want that to be the open file in the position. Bishop e2, knight f6, and then f4. The machine gives us a mistake. I think probably the reason it's considered a mistake is so queen c7, and then after queen c7, I'm pressuring c2. I'm also pressuring the knight through the pawn. So if f5 is ever played, I'll be able to take on g3, and if it takes on g6, I'll take on h2. So I didn't see that in the game, but that would be a very good way of proceeding. Instead, queen c8, similar idea. I'm trying to stop f5 and also pressure c2, but this method of preventing f5 is a little bit more passive. F5 might still even be playable. Instead, c3, which is my anticipated response to queen c8, and now I get the knight to e4. Now, this move, the machine thinks that black has lost the advantage after knight e4. I didn't really think that black was even better at this point, so I was knowing that maybe I would have played a different move, but knight e4 felt like the most principled way to play, where I'm basically playing on this e4 square, which is the hole in white's position. The pawns have come to either side, and you can no longer kick the knight away. And I'm going to support the knight with f5, either before or after a capture. So in this case, captures was played, and now I'm going to play f5. And this bishop is a very good piece in the middle of the board, And if you ever try to challenge it, I'm not worried about it being captured because I'll be able to get a protected passed pawn on this square e4. So that was my intention. Queen c6 is a move. I'm trying to remember exactly why I thought this move was important. Um, I remember this was a month ago at this point, so I don't. I remember feeling that Queen c6 was an important move, but I can't totally remember why I thought that. It may have been something to do with. Oh yeah, it was Bishop f3. I wanted to be able to play f5, and then after takes d takes, I wanted the queen already here, supporting d5 square, so that there wasn't this d5 push. Um, so here, for example, if takes takes, I didn't want d5 to come without being able to capture with the queen. Or some piece, but the queen was the only one that could get there at the time. Okay, queen d2. b5. Now b5, the purpose of b5 is to stop c4 advances, or also a4 is to prevent a4 as well. Um, the machine shows, I believe, if I remember correctly, that after takes the bishop, d takes the bishop, rook f d1, wanting to play d5. Um, if I play a move like queen d5, which was sort of what I wanted to be doing in these positions, there's a4. And a4 is very difficult to meet at this point because my king is still in f8. So my rooks aren't connected. I can't play a6. So I'd have to play something like b4 here. Um, and just, maybe not even b4, maybe just b takes b4 or c takes b4. So here it's already sort of difficult to play. So this was the way that she probably should have played. Instead, a3, which is, yeah, miss is fair to say. I mean, it's definitely not the most accurate way of playing. Um, not the most forcing. Now I get my king on f7, my rooks are connected, and my development is almost complete. I just need to get the rook out of h8, and then I can always tuck my king away on g8, and the position has become very pleasant for me to play because my bad bishop is this one. So bad bishop being the one in the same color as my pawns. Bad bishop is actually a very good bishop right now. So whereas my opponent's bad bishop is an actual bad bishop. So because it can't come out in either direction, it has to like go out this way, and probably it won't be able to do that. So rook a d1, a6. Purpose of a6 was that after takes d5, I want to be able to take everything. And here I'll show the line just in case you want to see. Takes here. I want to be able to take king e6 and not have my b pawn be hanging. The a pawn is protecting it. So this was what I was wanting after a6. In the game, this capture did occur, but now I move queen f2. Okay. And here I realized that, yes, I have a solid advantage. My advantage is in the form of this e4 pawn, which is protected and passed. And also, any bishop endgame should be very good, if not winning for me, because my bishop is the dark square bishop, it's the same color bishop ending, and the pawns are fixed on light squares, whereas her pawns are fixed on dark squares. So, um, so that's very favorable for me. So you can imagine the only real source of counterplay, which I saw at this point, is to play d5 at some point, which I have under control at the moment. Um, so my plan is if that happens, I'll have my rooks in the d file. We'll trade off all the major pieces, and then these pawns will likely be traded off the board. And so I'll have a 4-on-3 on the king side, and then she'll have a 3-on-2 on the queen side. But this pawn is passed, right? This is a protected passed pawn, and the pawns are all fixed on dark squares for her, whereas mine are on light squares. So the bishop endgame should be winning. This was what I was hoping for. So I play rook d8, preparing for that. Queen g3. I tuck the king away on g8, and now queen g5. And here we're not in time pressure. Really, there's no excuse for this next move. I play the move rook d7. And move rook d7 is just... I mean, I've been looking at this move d5 for a very long time. And here it's a threat. because the pawn on f5 is hanging. So if I take with this e pawn, then f5 falls, and my whole plan falls apart. Here I should just play a move like queen d5. There's nothing, these pawns are all fixed on the dark squares. The queen is very good at protecting, and this queen on g5 is uh, not going to be able to do anything alone. Eventually g4 will have to occur. And if g4, I was thinking I could maybe just play g6. Um, and after takes, I'll just take with the e pawn. Yes, I'll give you a protected pass pawn, but now your king is a little bit weak. The f pawn is going to be weaker, and I'll be able to play a5 b4 on the queen side. My king will be safe on the king side. So this is my plan. Rook d7 throws all that away. d5. And now I panicked because I had just missed a very important move. I very briefly looked at queen c4, and then I thought rook d4. I'm messing it up even more. This was my instinct on seeing that. But I have the move queen e2 there. And if I had found that, then there's a chance that I could still have some sort of advantage in this game. Queen e2 there would hit the bishop with tempo. There's no way to defend the bishop with tempo on my queen. And the rook can no longer go to e1, right? Because the rook is on d4. So that would have been a much better way of playing. You'll have to move your bishop maybe to f2, and then I'll have time to play bishop e7 because my queen won't be attacked, right? Because right now I want to play bishop e7. This was the point of rook d7. Rook d7, I wanted to play bishop e7. But here is tempo on the queen. So if I can get the queen out of tempo, or out of a danger with tempo, then I'll be able to play bishop e7. And then take on d5 when you're no longer able to recapture on f5. Okay. Instead, I capture, and this throws away the advantage because after queen takes f5, bishop c5, um, I no longer have really anything to play for. Yes, I do have this protected pass pawn, but the d5 pawn is permanently weak. Uh, she plays principally to trades the bishops, establishes a blockade on the dark squares, and now we get this position where all of her pieces are attacking my weakness, all of my pieces are defending my weakness, and when you're in a position like that, generally you are in trouble. But I still wanted to play for a win, because I'm trying to win these games. King f7, queen f5 check, king g8, queen e5. She seems content with repeating. And so instead of repeating and making a draw right now, I blunder a pawn with queen d6, thinking, okay, she'll move away, I'll be able to transpose my queen over to the other side. But there's a move rook takes e4. And after rook takes e4, I have two options. I didn't consider for very long the two rooks versus queen position, which would result if I took on e4, rook takes d6, rook takes d6. This position, I felt white is never at risk. Um, it's kind of hard to say exactly what white should do here because yes, I am threatening to go rook d1, rook d2, and take here on b2. But even there, white should not really be at risk of losing. This position felt black is in danger, and white has many ways to make progress. So instead, I just played this rook endgame, a very important move d4. Without d4, rook d4 will occur here, and the blockade will eventually win this pawn, and I'm already down a pawn. So this would be very bad. d4 trades off my weakness, and attacks f4, rook e6, and now we are 2 moves away from time control. We probably have about 10 minutes each, and I play a very bad move. I play the move rook d2. And rook d2, I thought, okay, I'll just play a couple of quick moves. We'll get the time control. I'm just not going to, I'll counterattack the pawn. The problem with rook d2 is that b4, and now rook takes a6 will win a pawn. I can't counterattack the a pawn. If I go back to rook d4, that would be very stupid because then I'll just be down, I don't know, 2 tempi from what I could have had if I had just taken it the previous move. This position is already very tough. And so now I have 2 moves to make until I get time control, and I have to I use all my 10 minutes to figure out what I think is the best try for black, which is a5, b takes a5, and then rook d4. Rook d4, the idea is if a6, I go rook a4, and I'll take on a3, push my b pawn, trade my b pawn for the a pawn, and I'll get a 3-on-2. So just to show line, this happens in the game. I get my rook here, where it's attacking both pawns. And now here, it's very important for white. After rook b6, I take on a3. Very important for white to bring the king now, while the king is still within the square, the square of this pawn. That way the rook can stay protecting the a pawn, and the king stops the b pawn. And then the rook endgame will likely be winning. It still requires a lot of technique. It's still a very difficult rook endgame, but this is the way that white should play. Because what happens in the game after a check, an inaccurate check, king f7, check, a7, it looks nice for white to get the pawn one square closer to queening, but unfortunately for white, this allows me to just push the b pawn, and eventually the king is no longer in the square. The king can no longer stop the pawn. If the king starts running, king, pawn, king, pawn, king. I make a queen, the rook needs to take, I take on a7, and now it's a 3-on-2, which is what I would like to have happen. The scary thing for me is this a pawn. So g4, probably the best try at this point. b3, king f2, b2, takes, takes. Now we have this 3-on-2 rook game, which should be a simple draw. Not simple, but it should be a draw. Check, king f7. I get the 3rd rank with my rook, or the 6th rank in this case because I'm black. F5. I play rook a6. Here I was expecting move king f4, and if it checked as rook e4, so I thought that I would just have to sit and then allow g5 takes, takes, king f7, allow this position, hopefully with my rook on a7 at that point. And there's still pressure. The position should be a draw, but there's still white still has some chances to do something serious. Instead, she just goes for this king pawn game, which is not a try at all. Now, I mean, it's just 2 versus 2 in a king pawn endgame. There's no weaknesses. My king might be a little bit more active, honestly, but it shouldn't matter. King f6. Now g5 though, and it was sort of getting a little. It's funny because I'm down a pawn in the rook endgame, and then suddenly g5, and I can win this pawn by force after king e6. There's no way for white to take opposition. So I'm going to win this pawn, which doesn't matter because in the end, she takes opposition on the 5th rank, and I have to play g5. And so in the end, I mess around for a bit with the king, but it is a draw by stalemate. Where I have the extra pawn, which is a nice feeling when I was just down, down a pawn for a very long time. So draw in the first round of this tournament. I would say that the critical moments, one in the opening, this is a line that I should know if I'm playing the Caro-Kann. I've since looked at it and I have a better idea of the setups that I'm supposed to go for with black, but definitely need to work on the openings. After this game, I would say maybe king f8 is a critical move. I should maybe take on h5 and play g6 here. Maybe a better way of playing, more solid for black, less committal than king f8. What other important moves are there? b5 may be inaccurate. Maybe I should start by moving with the king, king f7, connecting the rooks, finishing development first before b5. Rook d7 is just a terrible move, allowing d5, and then the decision after of taking it instead of playing queen c4, also very suspect. This is a move of lack of focus on the game, where it feels like I have, just a static advantage. I know that there's d5, and I just, forget about it for a move, where I don't think about it for a move. It feels like I can do anything I want. I can play bishop e7 next, and suddenly d5 is possible. So there's a lack of focus, which I think probably costs the game, like winning this game. I think eventually, if I play non a move that doesn't allow d5, eventually I will be able to trade off heavies after d5 does happen in a more ideal circumstance, and then play this bishop endgame. Bishop endgame should be winning. Maybe I don't get there with perfect play, but it feels like black has significant chances to get there from here. Not after d5. Okay. And then maybe the last, well, in the rook endgame there was better ways for white to play, but maybe the last critical moment is this move rook d2, being very careless before time control. Um, Definitely not the most accurate way to play, giving myself a losing position with good play from white. It's still very difficult for white for sure, but it's uh, this move should not be played. So lessons learned um, from this game, and then yeah, we hold a rook in game. Okay, so that was round one, a solid draw. I would say it was shaky at times, but uh, aside from the one moment in the rook in game, I was never at risk of losing. And yeah, lessons learned for round two. So you can stay tuned for the next video. I'm going to try to get all of these out pretty close together since this tournament was a while back. Um, and as tournaments happen in the future, I'll release videos as sort of as they happen, um, rather than waiting a month. So yeah, it should be good. I hope you enjoyed this video, and share it with people who might find it interesting. Um, and yeah, anyone interested in lessons can go to chessquares.com, sign up. We have availability at a lot of different flexible times right now. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.